7 years of marriage, and I thought I had married into a good family with a husband who loved me with all his heart. I gave everything. I sacrificed my money and my youth to build this home, only for the same man I shared my pillow with to cold-heartedly throw divorce papers in my face today. He threw me out of the house that I had helped build with most of my own money. And what's even more painful, my mother-in-law, the woman I had always respected, threw a cruel sentence and a ragged canvas bag at my feet. Take this trash of yours with you and never show your face here again. But she never suspected that when I opened that bag, a shattering secret would come to light that left me completely paralyzed and sent the tragedy of my life in a direction no one could have imagined. Hello, I'm Sarah. On this channel, I present to you the courageous, real-life stories of women. Please note, in all the stories you'll hear, names have been changed and visuals have been created to respect privacy. If you'd like to share your story and inspire other women, you can reach us through the channel's About section. I would be honored to be your voice. No, I invite you to listen to the story of a woman who found the strength to stand tall, despite life's challenges. The sharp click of my husband Liam's pen as he set it on the glass table echoed in my ears like a gunshot. Outside, a heavy summer thunderstorm was raging over Chicago. The heavy raindrops lashed against the window, cold and melancholic, just like my mood in this moment. I sat motionless on the high-end leather sofa with the divorce papers in front of me. Liam's fresh signature seemed like a mockery of my 7 years as a wife. I had a lump in my throat and couldn't get a single word out. I looked at him, the man I had fallen in love with at 20 and for whom I hadn't hesitated to give up a promising career to be his unconditional support. His face was as attractive and elegant as ever, but the look he gave me now was so strange, so icy, that it chilled me to the bone. He was no longer the tender husband who held me in his arms every night and whispered words of love to me. The man before me was a judge, an executioner, throwing me away like an old object. Sign it. His voice was completely emotionless. This house is in my name. The car, too. You came here with nothing, and you'll leave with nothing. It's just simpler. As a gesture for the years we were married, I'll give you enough money to rent a small room and start looking for a new job. Every word he spoke was like an invisible knife stabbing directly into my bleeding heart. I had contributed 2/3 of my savings for this house to build it together with him. The luxury car he drove was a gift I had financed for him from my annual bonus. And now he had the nerve to claim everything belonged to him. That I was a parasite and had to leave with nothing. Why? I managed to get out in a strained, hoarse, and trembling voice. Liam, why are you doing this to me? What did I do wrong? Liam gave a contemptuous smile, one I had never seen on him before. You did nothing wrong, Jessica. You just don't fit into my life anymore. He stood up and straightened his designer tie. My sister Sophia returned from London a few months ago. She introduced me to new people, new opportunities to change my life. And in this world, there is no place for a frugal wife like you. So it was because of Sophia, the younger sister I had loved with all my heart and for whom I had financed 4 years of study abroad. The day she left, I treated her like my own sister and emptied my savings so she wouldn't have to face any hardship. And now that she was back, the first gift she gave me was such a painful betrayal. At that moment, the living room door flew open. My mother-in-law, Mrs. Helen Carter, walked in. She was wearing silk pajamas and holding a fan with a composure as if she had just come from a walk instead of witnessing her son's family shattering. She glanced at me, then at the divorce papers on the table, and her shrill voice sounded triumphant. What are you waiting for to sign? A barren woman like you is just taking up space. 7 years, and not a single heir for this family. What are you clinging to? Her words were like a bucket of ice-cold water poured over my pain. The topic of children was my greatest sorrow. We had been to countless doctors. They said we were both healthy. It just wasn't the right time yet. Liam had always comforted me and said he didn't care. It turned out that was all a lie, and this was the perfect excuse to get rid of me. I looked up at her. My eyes begged for a last spark of humanity, but I only received her icy gaze. Don't call me Mom. I have no daughter-in-law as useless as you. My son Liam has a brilliant future ahead of him. He needs a woman who is his equal, who knows how to give him children, not a burden who only knows how to live at his expense. I couldn't take it anymore. Pain and indignation rose in my throat. I jumped up. Tears streamed down my cheeks. A burden? You say I'm a burden? Who paid for the majority of this house? Where did the money for Sophia's studies come from? Who took care of you all when you were sick? I never held anything against you, but that doesn't mean I did nothing. My mother-in-law was stunned for a moment by my reaction, then scoffed. Oh, you can talk a good game. Where's the proof? The deed for the house is in my son's name. You gave the money to his sister voluntarily, and now you're coming to make demands. How shameless. She turned to her son. Liam, what are you waiting for to throw her out? If she stays here one more minute, she's just dirtying this house. As if he had only been waiting for this command, Liam came closer, grabbed me by the arm, and dragged me to the door. My suitcase, which had already been packed, was in the entryway. Get out. My patience with you is gone. He pushed me out the door, and I fell hard onto the cold floor of the porch. The rain continued to pour down heavily and burned painfully on my face. I looked inside at the man who had been my husband and at my mother-in-law, the people I had loved the most, who now looked at me with strange, cruel eyes. The heavy iron door began to close. At that exact moment, my mother-in-law came out of the house with an old, torn canvas bag in her hand. It was the bag I used to take to the farmer's market. She threw the bag at me, and it landed right next to a dirty puddle. Take this trash of yours with you too, and get out of my sight. Her voice screeched as the door slammed shut. I was left alone in the darkness, in the rain, and in absolute despair. I sat there, letting the rain soak me, my tears mixing with the water on my face. I didn't know where to go. I had lost everything. But maybe out of curiosity or a last spark of hope, I reached out with my trembling hand and picked up the torn bag she had thrown at me. I opened it, and what was inside took my breath away and opened a completely new chapter in my life. The thunderstorm still hadn't let up. I was huddled under the awning of a closed shop, soaked and freezing. The small suitcase lay abandoned next to me, and in my hands, I held the torn canvas bag. The only thing my mother-in-law had given me before she closed the door. How long had I been sitting here? An hour, 2, or more? I didn't know. Time seemed to stand still. Only the pain and emptiness were eating away at my soul. My head was spinning with unanswered questions. Why? Why had everything come to this? What had I done to deserve such a tragic end? 7 years isn't a long time, but it's long enough for a woman to put her entire youth, faith, and hopes into a marriage. I once thought I was the happiest woman in the world to have married Liam. When we met, he was just a boy from a small town in the Ozarks who had come to Chicago to seek his fortune. He was friendly, honest, and had a smile as warm as the sun. I was a fresh college graduate back then, starting to run a small fashion boutique. Our love developed naturally and gently. He had nothing, but he had a sincere heart. He told me, Jessica, I have nothing right now, but I promise you I will work hard to give you the best life. I won't let you suffer. I believed in that promise. I believed in his love. We got married in a simple ceremony without luxury cars, without an elegant restaurant, only with the blessings of family and friends. After the wedding, we lived in a small rental apartment. Life was hard, but always full of laughter. I continued to run my business, and Liam worked as an employee at a real estate firm. My business flourished. A small shop turned into a chain of 3 designer boutiques with a loyal clientele and steadily growing income. I never hid anything from Liam. I shared every income, every business plan with him. I wanted him to see that we were a team, building our future together. When my business was stable, I decided to step back to have more time for family. I delegated some of the management to my employees and kept only an oversight role. I wanted to be a real wife, cook for my husband every day, and take care of every detail. I also started thinking about his family. His parents lived in their small town in an old, run-down house. Every time I visited them, my heart ached. I suggested to Liam that we build them a new house. At first, he was embarrassed. He said he didn't have enough money. I smiled, took his hand, and said, "My money is your money. Your parents are my parents. Let's take care of them together and give them a dignified place to live. I took out almost $500,000. It was all my savings at the time. I sent it to their town so his parents could build a solid 3-story house. On the day the new house was finished, all the relatives came to congratulate us. Everyone praised what good children we were. My mother-in-law, Mrs. Helen, took my hand and said with a moved voice, "Jessica, thank you, my child. I never thought I would live in such a beautiful house one day." I felt so happy in that moment. I thought my sincerity had finally been rewarded. Then there was the matter of Sophia, Liam's younger sister. She was intelligent and a good student. Her biggest dream was to study abroad, but her family couldn't afford it. When I saw the longing in her eyes, I couldn't stand it. I said to Liam, "Let me handle this. Consider it an investment in her future." At first, Liam hesitated, but finally he agreed. For 4 years, I sent Sophia money punctually every month, not a cent less. I gave up travel, gave up the luxury my friends enjoyed, all so that my sister-in-law could fulfill her dream. I thought when she came back with her degree, she would be the pride of the family and grateful to her sister-in-law. But I was wrong. I was so incredibly wrong. The change in Liam began about 2 years ago, after he was promoted to sales manager. He started coming home late. The business trips piled up. Dinners at home became rarer, and the tender words dried up. He paid more attention to his appearance, bought expensive suits and brand-name watches. I wondered if the work pressure had changed him or if his new environment had alienated him from the man he once was. I tried to rekindle the flame, cooked his favorite dishes, dressed more nicely at home, but all I got was indifference, sometimes even irritation. "Don't bother me, I'm tired." That was the sentence I heard most often in the last 2 years. I was sad and hurt, but I never thought he had another woman. I continued to believe blindly in our love, in our 7 years together, until Sophia returned. She had changed completely. She was no longer the simple, modest student of the past. She came back with a modern look, fashionable, and with a mindset I couldn't understand. She told me, "Jessica, a woman nowadays needs to know how to enjoy life, how to invest in herself. If you keep hiding away in the kitchen, Liam will get sick of you one day." I just smiled and thought she was joking, not knowing that this was the first warning. Sophia often invited Liam to go out to nightclubs, to luxurious parties, which according to her were for making contacts. Initially, Liam refused, but then he went along more and more often. He would come home smelling of alcohol with another woman's perfume on his clothes. When I asked him about it, he just yelled, "Don't be paranoid. This is work. These are social contacts. Do you get it?" And finally, the inevitable happened. Today, he threw me away with an unbearably cruel justification. "You don't fit in anymore." 7 years of sacrifice, 7 years of effort, and all I got were those 4 words, "You don't fit in anymore." Another hot tear rolled down my cheek. What had I done wrong? Was it a mistake to love someone too much, to sacrifice myself too much for his family? Or was it a mistake to trust too much in the word marriage? The rain had let up, leaving only a fine drizzle in the air. The city was shining bright and glossy, but my heart was a dark abyss. Where should I go now? I couldn't go to my mother in this miserable state. I didn't want to worry her. I looked at the torn canvas bag in my hand, the only thing they had given back to me. It probably just had a few old clothes I had worn in the past. I smiled bitterly. They treated me like a beggar until the very end. But maybe, before I completely fell apart, I should check what was inside. It was an unconscious action, a final curiosity before closing a bitter chapter of my life. With trembling hands, I opened the bag, and what appeared before my eyes left me stunned, unable to believe it. It wasn't just a secret. It was a truth that could change everything. Inside the old, worn canvas bag, contrary to my expectation, there were no crumpled clothes. Instead, placed perfectly on top, was a savings passbook with a dark blue leather cover, completely new. I took it out dazed. My hands were still trembling from the cold and shock. Which bank was this from? Why was it here? I had never owned such a savings book. With extreme curiosity and disbelief, I opened the first page. Account holder, Jessica Miller. It was my name, but it was the number underneath that almost made my heart stop. $20 million. 20 million. I rubbed my eyes and looked at the number several times. $20 million. The number was like an electric shock that jolted me and made all the fatigue, pain, and despair from before disappear. Only shock and incredible amazement remained. Where did this money come from? Why would my mother-in-law, a woman who had always put me down and counted every cent, put such an enormous sum in this bag and give it to me? It was too illogical, too absurd. Maybe it was a mistake or a new trap she was setting for me. Thousands of questions swirled in my head. Trembling, I searched the rest of the bag. Under the savings book was a bundle of documents carefully stored in a transparent plastic sleeve. I took them out. It was a property deed, but the address was neither the house in the small town that I had paid for nor the mansion Liam had just thrown me out of. The address read clearly, Mansion number 27, Astor Street, Gold Coast, Chicago. It was one of the most expensive and prestigious residential areas in Chicago, and what made me freeze again was the owner section. It listed only a single name, printed clearly and distinctly, Jessica Miller. Along with the deed were the purchase contract and the payment receipts, all settled. The mansion had been paid for in cash 6 months ago and belonged entirely to me. My mind went blank. All logic evaporated in the face of what was happening. A savings book with $20 million and a luxury mansion. All in my name. Placed in a torn bag and handed over by the same mother-in-law who had just humiliated me and thrown me onto the street. Was this a dream, or was I so hurt that I was hallucinating? I pinched myself hard on the arm. The stinging pain spread. It was real. At the very bottom of the bag was something else. A cheap cell phone, one of the old flip phone models, and a power bank. And on the back of the phone, a carefully sealed letter was taped, with no writing on the outside. My heart was beating wildly in my chest. I knew that the answer to this whole insane situation must be in this letter. Trembling, I broke the seal and unfolded the paper. Inside were a few lines in careful and familiar handwriting. It was the writing of my mother-in-law, Mrs. Helen. Jessica, my child, when you read these lines, you will probably hate me. You will hate this whole family to the bone. I am sorry. I am sorry for all the cruel words, all the merciless acts I did to you today. But my child, please believe me, everything was an act, a painful act that I felt forced to perform to protect you, to protect what is yours. I froze. An act. I discovered the true face of Liam and Sophia a long time ago. Liam has not only been unfaithful to you, but he has conspired with his mistress to siphon funds from your own company. And Sophia, the daughter I love the most, is not only ungrateful, but has pushed her brother to rob you of your belongings and put you on the street to clear the way for his mistress. I overheard their conversation. They planned to wait until they had emptied your accounts. Then they would invent an excuse for the divorce and put you on the street with nothing. Every line of the letter was like a hammer blow to my head. Liam embezzling from my company, Sophia encouraging him. How was it possible that I had noticed nothing? I tried to talk them out of it, but it was no use. Greed has blinded them. I knew if I openly took your side, they would become more cautious and act faster. I had no other choice but to play the role of the evil mother-in-law, to take their side so they would get careless and believe I was with them. Only in this way did I have time to help you secretly. The $20 million are just a small portion of my liquid assets that I moved into a secret account for you. I transferred everything to your name. I also bought the mansion on the Gold Coast with this money. I wanted you to have a place to flee to, a safe refuge when the storm comes. I knew Liam would want to keep your house, so I had to prepare a safer escape route for you. I made sure all the property papers are in your name. He will never be able to touch them. Today, when I threw you out, my heart broke into 1,000 pieces. But I had to do it, Jessica. I had to let them see that you really left with nothing, that you were thrown out in absolute humiliation. Only then would they be satisfied, drop their guard, and show their true face. This is a chess game, and we must win. This phone is for us to communicate secretly. Don't use your old phone. They could be monitoring it. Keep playing the role of the pitiful woman who has been abandoned by her husband and has nothing. Let them keep playing their game. I will help you collect all the evidence of their crimes. When the time comes, we will deliver the final blow. Child, be strong. The show has only just begun. Your mother. I folded the letter. Tears streamed down my cheeks, but this time they weren't tears of pain or despair, but of emotion, gratitude, and a hope that was reborn from the ashes. My mother-in-law, the woman I thought was cruel and cold, turned out to be the one who loved and protected me the most. She didn't choose direct confrontation, but a thornier, more painful path, accepting the role of the villain to protect me in the shadows. Such a bold plan, such an immense sacrifice. I honestly couldn't believe it. What would you have done after reading a letter like that? Let me know in the comments. I looked at the savings book and the property deed again. They were no longer just material things. They were love, trust, the weapon my mother-in-law had handed me. I dried my tears, my gaze becoming firm and sharp. I will not collapse. I will not let my mother-in-law's sacrifice be in vain. I will continue to play this part. I will act until the final curtain. Liam, Sophia, enjoy it while you can, because your happy times are coming to an end. My mother-in-law's letter was like a breath of fresh air that rekindled the flame of hope and the will to fight in me. I was no longer a miserable victim huddled in the rain. I had a goal, a plan, and above all, an incredibly strong and wise ally. I stowed the savings book, the deed, and the letter carefully at the bottom of the canvas bag and took only the cheap phone my mother-in-law had prepared for me. I had to get out of there quickly and find a safe place to begin my act. I couldn't go to my mother's right away. If Liam and Sophia got suspicious, they would look for me there. I needed a temporary hideout, a place no one could imagine. Suddenly I remembered Karen, a woman I had helped when she first came to Chicago to build a life. She lived alone in a small apartment in Englewood, quite far from the city center and with no connection to my social circle. I dialed her number, and luckily, the number I remembered was correct. Hello, Jessica, is that you? My goodness, how long has it been since we've seen each other? How are you? Karen's voice on the other end of the line was as warm and sincere as ever. I forced my voice to sound trembling and pitiful. Karen, I have a problem. Could I stay with you for a few days? Karen didn't ask many questions, but just said firmly, of course, come over immediately. Still the same address. I'm expecting you. Karen's apartment wasn't big, but it was very tidy and cozy. When she saw me soaked and neglected, she was startled. She quickly gave me dry clothes and prepared a hot ginger tea for me. My God, what happened to make you look like this? Where is Liam? I sat there, held the warm cup tight, and began to tell her my story. But I told only half the truth, the painful half my mother-in-law had designed for me. I told her how Liam and his sister had betrayed me, forced me into a divorce, and thrown me out of the house with nothing. I cried, and this time the tears were not entirely acted. It was the frustration over my 7 years of sacrifice. I deliberately left out the part about my mother-in-law and the enormous fortune. Karen was furious when she heard me. She slammed the table and cursed Liam's family mercilessly. What villains? How can there be such vile people in this world? Don't worry, Jessica. Stay here with me. I'm not rich, but you won't lack for food. Don't be afraid. Karen's kindness touched me deeply. I knew I had found the perfect hideout. That night, I used the new phone with a prepaid card and sent my mother-in-law a message. I am safe. A few minutes later, she replied, Good, stay calm. They have already started to act. And so it was. The next morning, while I was helping Karen clean, a post on social media caught my eye. Sophia, my sister-in-law, had published a status update full of hints on her profile. Finally, the sky is clearing. There are burdens that don't belong to us, and it's better to let them go early to make room for better things. Along with the text was a photo of her and Liam in a luxury cafe. Both were smiling broadly as if they had thrown a great burden off their shoulders. The post quickly received hundreds of likes and comments. Friends of Sophia and Liam asked, What are you celebrating? Liam looks so sharp. Sophia didn't answer directly, but left only smiling and mysterious emojis, which increased everyone's curiosity. I knew this was her first move, a test of public opinion. They wanted to create the image that our marriage had ended amicably, that I had left of my own free will, while they began anew, shiny life. But their act didn't end there. That same afternoon, my mother-in-law sent me a short audio recording via the secret phone. It was a conversation between her and Liam at dinner. "Mom, I settled things with Jessica. She was reasonable, signed voluntarily, and left. I gave her some money. I didn't want her to go empty-handed." Liam's voice sounded haughty and magnanimous. "Better that way," replied Mrs. Helen, maintaining her role as the disinterested mother. "Settle it quickly and focus on other things. Sophia introduced you to that girl, right? The director of the modeling agency. Take the chance. A man can't be without a woman by his side." "Yes, Mom, I know. The girl isn't bad. Good family, pretty, intelligent. She will surely help me a lot in my career." I listened to the recording with an ice-cold heart. Barely a day after he had thrown me out, he was already planning his future with another woman. And my mother-in-law, her acting performance was masterful. She had skillfully brought up the topic so that Liam revealed his plans, the director of the modeling agency. So that was the opportunity to change his life that Sophia had mentioned. My marriage wasn't even officially over, and they were already paving the way for another woman, a woman who was more appropriate and had a better social position. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what my mother-in-law had written in the letter. "Liam has conspired with his mistress to siphon funds from your own company. My company, although I had delegated management to my employees, required my signature for all important financial decisions and large transactions. How could Liam take money? Unless there was a mole. Unless someone inside my company helped him." A name suddenly popped into my head and sent a cold shiver down my spine. Megan, my head of accounting. Megan was a quiet, meticulous woman who had been with me for 5 years. I trusted her completely. I had entrusted the entire accounting and finances to her. But I remembered hearing recently how employees were gossiping that Megan had bought a luxury condo. Something impossible with her salary. At the time, I thought her family probably had money and didn't think much of it. But now everything seemed incredibly suspicious. Immediately, I turned on my laptop and logged into the company's internal management system. I went to the finance section and checked all transactions from the last 6 months. My heart was pounding. I checked hundreds of transactions. At first, nothing seemed abnormal. All expenses had valid invoices and receipts. But then I paused at several payments under the purpose, marketing costs, to a consulting firm with a very strange name, North Star LLC. The payments were not huge, significant sums, over $100,000 each, but they repeated monthly. The strange thing was that I had never heard of this firm and had not approved any strategy in connection with it. I quickly searched for North Star LLC online. The result left me stunned. The company had been founded only 6 months ago, and the legal representative was none other than Liam Carter, my husband. Everything was clear. He had founded a shell company and teamed up with Megan to create fake service contracts, and thus legalize the transfer of funds from my company into his own pocket. Such a refined, such a cruel plot. He had not only betrayed me emotionally, but he was robbing his wife of her hard-earned money. I sat in front of the computer. My hands were clenched so tight that my knuckles turned white. The rage in me reached its peak, but I knew this was not the moment to act. I had to stay calm, collect more evidence, not only to expose him, but to make him pay before the law. My play now had a new villain, and I knew I needed an even more perfect plan than theirs to defeat them. The shock of discovering the embezzlement by Liam and Megan did not throw me off course. On the contrary, it acted as a catalyst that made my determination stronger than ever. I was no longer an innocent lamb waiting and suffering. I had turned into a she-wolf, a wounded she-wolf patiently waiting for the moment to counterattack. I knew I couldn't act alone against a devilish alliance of my husband, my sister-in-law, and a trusted employee. I needed stronger and more reliable allies. The first person I thought of was my own mother. My mother, Rebecca, was a retired teacher. She was friendly and kind, but by no means weak. She had always taught me that a woman can sacrifice for others, but must never allow them to trample on her dignity. The next morning, I took an early train to visit her. I hadn't called ahead. I wanted to surprise her. Her small house on the outskirts was as peaceful and warm as ever. When I suddenly appeared with my haggard look, my mother got worried. But before she could ask, I hugged her tight, like a child seeking refuge in the safest place in the world. I told her everything, how I had been thrown out of the house, the plot by Liam and Sophia, and the play directed by my mother-in-law. I showed her the letter from Mrs. Helen and the evidence of the shell company. My mother listened in silence. Her face changed from concern to astonishment and then to indignation. When I was finished, she said nothing, but only squeezed my hand tightly. "My child, you have suffered so much," she said with a cracked voice. "From now on, you are not fighting alone anymore. Mom is here." My mother's support was a balm that gave me great calm, but I knew that love alone was not enough to win this legal battle. I needed someone who knew the law, someone who could turn my evidence into a sharp weapon. "Mom, I need a good lawyer," I said. My mother nodded immediately. "I have an old friend. His name is Dr. Lincoln. He is a very well-known lawyer in Chicago, specialized in asset disputes and divorces. He is a very direct and just man, and he hates liars. Let me call him right away." The meeting with Dr. Lincoln took place that same afternoon in his law firm. He was a middle-aged man, tall, with a distinguished aura and an incredibly sharp gaze. After examining all the documents I had provided him, my mother-in-law's letter, the account statements, the information about Liam's shell company, Dr. Lincoln just nodded with an unmoved face. His calm made me a little impatient. "Dr. Lincoln, what do you think? Is this enough evidence for?" He interrupted me with a firm voice. "It is not only enough evidence for you to win the divorce and get back all your assets, but it is enough to file criminal charges against Liam for embezzlement and fraud. Even his sister Sophia and the accountant could be considered accomplices." He looked at me seriously. "But the question is not whether we have enough evidence, but how far you want to go. Do you want to put your husband in prison?" His question made me freeze. Put Liam in prison? I had never thought of that. Despite all his cruelty, he was still the man I had once loved, my husband for 7 years. A part of me still hesitated. Seeing my silence, Dr. Lincoln continued. "Jessica, I understand how you feel, but you must consider that misplaced pity is cruelty to yourself. Someone who feels nothing for you anymore, who betrayed you and stole the fruits of your labor, deserves no consideration. This fight is not only to get back what belongs to you, but to prevent them from continuing to deceive other women." The lawyer's words lit up the dark corners of my mind. He was right. I couldn't be weak in this moment. If I forgave Liam, it would be as if I were tolerating evil. "I understand." I raised my head. My gaze became determined. "I want everything to be settled according to the law. Whoever has done wrong must face the consequences." "Good," nodded Dr. Lincoln with satisfaction. "Then let's start with the plan. For now, keep playing your role. Act pitiful, desperate. The more you do that, the more certain they will become of their victory. In the meantime, I will discreetly collect further evidence, especially witness statements from your company's employees, to build the case. We will not attack immediately. We will wait for the perfect moment, when they least expect it, to deliver the final blow." Leaving the law firm, I felt a sense of absolute certainty. I had a clear plan, a defined strategy. I was no longer a small ship drifting rudderless on the ocean. I had a beacon to guide me and an experienced captain. I returned to Karen's apartment and continued my role. I made myself appear more frail, ate and slept little, and spent the day with a vacant stare. Karen looked at me with pity and kept encouraging me. I knew her concern was sincere, but I couldn't tell her the truth. The fewer people who knew about the act, the safer it was. The plan was risky, and I had to play the part of a broken woman perfectly. Do you think you could have pulled off an act like that? In the meantime, Liam and Sophia were celebrating their victory elsewhere. My mother-in-law kept me updated. Liam had made his relationship with the model public. He went shopping with her and to luxury restaurants without any shame. Sophia didn't stop boasting on social media with designer clothes and exotic trips financed by her beloved brother. They were intoxicated by their success, not knowing an invisible net was slowly closing around them. I read my mother-in-law's messages, saw the photos of Liam and Sophia, and my heart remained calm. I felt only pity for them. They were happily dancing on the edge of an abyss without realizing it. My act continued. Every day, I played the role of a failed and pitiful woman perfectly. I didn't contact Liam and showed no sign of resistance. My silence led him and his family to become completely careless. They believed I had accepted my fate, that I had given up, and that was exactly what I wanted. I needed them to be certain of their victory and arrogance so that when I acted, they would have no time to react. One night, while I was alone in my room, the secret phone vibrated. It was a message from my mother-in-law. Sophia is going to celebrate her birthday. She's planning a big party at the most luxurious hotel in the city to introduce her new boyfriend and show off her status. Liam is paying for everything. A brilliant idea shot through my head. This was the moment I had been waiting for. A big party with all of Liam and Sophia's friends and business partners. The perfect stage to let the curtain fall on this play. I smiled. A cold smile in the darkness. Thank you, Sophia, for giving me such a good opportunity. Your birthday party will undoubtedly become an unforgettable memory. The plan for Sophia's special birthday gift took shape secretly between Dr. Lincoln and me. Time was tight, only 2 weeks. But with what we had, we were sure we could cause an earthquake. First, we needed to confirm the party details. I called my mother-in-law, keeping my weak, pitiful tone. Mom, I heard that next weekend is Sophia's birthday. The voice of Mrs. Helen on the other end sounded as cold as ever, but I could hear an undertone of satisfaction. Yes, she plans to celebrate big. She has invited hundreds of people to the Drake Hotel. Her boyfriend comes from a good family. She has to make a good impression. Liam is supporting her in everything. He's taking care of the organization from A to Z. Oh dear, I answered in a whisper, feigning sadness. Can I come, Mom? After all, she is my sister-in-law. My mother-in-law laughed dryly. What do you want to come for, so people can stare at you and whisper? Stay home and leave us in peace. I hung up and smiled. Everything was going according to plan. The less they wanted me to appear, the more effective my appearance would be. In the meantime, Dr. Lincoln got to work. He sent an official request to my company, demanding in my name that the management, meaning me, cooperate by providing all ledgers and invoices from the last year for the divorce asset division. Of course, this was just a diversion, an act aimed at Megan, the head of accounting. After receiving the request, I called an urgent meeting and invited Megan and other department heads. I played the role of a weakened, worried, and powerless boss perfectly. I said that my husband's lawyers were putting me under pressure and that they suspected financial irregularities in the company. I asked Megan to prepare all necessary documents. Megan, please check everything carefully, I said, looking her directly in the eyes with a pleading voice. I trust you completely, but Liam's lawyers are very aggressive. If they find any mistake, not only me but the whole company will be in trouble. Megan seemed, as expected, nervous, but tried to remain calm. She nodded and promised to check everything. I knew she would inform Liam immediately after the meeting, and that was what I wanted. I wanted them to panic, to fear their schemes were about to be discovered. I wanted them to act on their own to cover up their crimes. And in doing so, they would make more mistakes. Indeed, my mother-in-law sent me another recording that same evening. This time it was a tense phone conversation between Liam and Megan. What do you mean, his wife's lawyers want to check the accounts? Megan's voice was a bundle of nerves. We're ruined. If they discover the contracts with North Star LLC. Calm down. Liam's voice also sounded worried, but he tried to soothe her. All the documents are legal. You just have to say they were real campaigns. Jessica understands nothing about marketing. What is she going to check? But listen carefully. Now do what I tell you. Under the pretext of year-end cleaning, destroy all physical copies of these contracts and delete the data from the computer too, so no trace remains. Do it, and I'll take care of the rest. When this is over, I will reward you generously. The recording ended. I sat in silence. A deep disgust overcame me. They were not only thieves, but were now planning to destroy evidence. But they didn't know that all their steps were being watched. Dr. Lincoln smiled when he heard the recording. Excellent. The destruction of evidence is a very valuable aggravating circumstance in court, he said. Now we just have to wait for the party. In the following days, I continued playing my role as a broken woman. Under the pretext of health problems, I didn't go into the company and delegated everything to my department heads. I knew Megan was using the opportunity to put her plan into action. Secretly, I had installed remote data recovery software on the company server. Every deletion or change she made was registered. Meanwhile, Liam and Sophia were busy preparing their party of the century. They had no idea that it wasn't a birthday party, but a public trial where all their sins would be exposed. I also began to prepare for my appearance. I didn't need to buy new clothes or put on flashy makeup. My weapon was not my beauty, but the truth. I just had to prepare myself mentally to keep a cool head to face the people who had mercilessly trampled on my life. I contacted a few close friends, those who had been with Liam and me from the beginning, and invited them to a special event on Saturday evening at the Drake Hotel. I gave them no details, just told them that they would see a very interesting play. The day of the party had finally come. I looked in the mirror. I was no longer the tired and haggard Jessica. I had regained the demeanor of a confident and determined businesswoman. I chose a black dress, simple but elegant, an updo, and an intense red lipstick full of strength. My mother took my hand, her gaze full of trust. "Go, my child, it's time to let the curtain fall." I nodded and took a deep breath. That night, Chicago would not sleep. The Drake Hotel was a splendor of luxury and glitter that evening, like a fairy tale palace. The main hall was decorated with fresh flowers, balloons, and cascades of crystal lights. Soft music mixed with the sound of laughter. Sophia, in a designer evening gown of quartz pink studded with sequins, received guests at the entrance, as beautiful and haughty as a princess. By her side was Liam in an elegant white suit, holding the hand of a young and beautiful model, whom he openly introduced as his new girlfriend. They looked like the perfect couple, happy and radiant. Anyone who saw them would have thought they were an example of success and fulfillment. They were at the peak of their arrogance, unknowingly, while the abyss opened beneath their feet. I didn't enter the hall directly. Together with Dr. Lincoln and two notaries in plain clothes, I sat in a cafe on the ground floor and watched silently. My mother-in-law, Mrs. Helen, had also arrived. She continued to play her role as a simple woman from a small town, dressed plainly, sitting in a discreet corner, but I knew her sharp eyes were watching everything. According to the plan, we waited until exactly 8 p.m. When the party had started and all guests were present, it would be time to raise the curtain. At 8 p.m., after Sophia's opening speech full of boasting about her own success and the support of her wonderful brother, the host invited everyone to look at the big screen to see a video of memorable moments from her last year. That was my moment. I stood up, adjusted my dress, took a deep breath, and calmly entered the hall with Dr. Lincoln and the two notaries. My sudden appearance drew all eyes, the music quieted down, and whispering spread. Everyone knew who I was. The useless and barren wife who had just been abandoned by her husband. They looked at me with a mixture of curiosity, pity, and even contempt. Liam and Sophia, standing on the stage, froze at the sight of me. The smiles vanished from their lips. Sophia's face went from radiant to pale, while Liam stammered, unable to speak. "Jessica, what are you doing here?" I didn't answer him, just smiled a broad and radiant smile and walked directly onto the stage, taking the microphone from the baffled host's hand. "Excuse the interruption of the party." My voice sounded clear, powerful, and echoed through the whole hall. "I am Jessica Miller, the lawful wife of Mr. Liam Carter." I let my gaze sweep through the audience and paused at familiar faces, at friends and partners who had worked with me. Today, on such a happy day for my sister-in-law, I also have a small gift, a special video that I want to dedicate to her and her beloved brother. Consider it my congratulations for this new chapter in your lives. With that, I signaled the video tech, whom Dr. Lincoln had instructed in advance. The lights in the hall were dimmed, so only the light of the big screen remained. The video began. It wasn't glamorous pictures of Sophia, but a photo of the old house in their hometown before the renovation with the text, "Here's where the story begins." Afterwards, enlarged account statements appeared one after another, clearly showing the sender's name Jessica Miller and the recipients Liam Carter and Sophia Carter, with sums amounting to hundreds of thousands of dollars. A subtitle stated, "Money for the construction of the in-laws' house, money for the 4 years of the sister-in-law's studies in London. All from a parasitic wife." Seeing their faces, a part of me felt a twinge of doubt. Was this going too far, or was it the justice they deserved? Tell me what you think below. The hall went into an uproar, the whispering growing louder. The faces of Liam and Sophia went from white to purple. The video continued, showing screenshots of the transactions between my company and Liam's shell company, North Star LLC. Fake contracts, fraudulent invoices, everything was projected with crystal clear clarity. The following text appeared, and this is how a wonderful husband responds. He embezzles almost $1 million of his wife's money to finance his mistress. The screen changed and showed a series of photos of Liam and the model embracing and being intimate in various places, from luxury restaurants to hotels. "Turn that off. Turn this garbage off immediately," screamed Liam, trying to climb onto the stage, but it was already too late. Dr. Lincoln and the 2 notaries blocked his way. The video continued. This time it was the recording of the conversation between Liam and Megan, where they planned the destruction of evidence. Their voices sounded clear and undeniable. "Delete everything so that no trace remains." The hall exploded. Shouts, boos, insults from all sides. People turned to Liam and Sophia with disbelief, disgust, and contempt. The model, Liam's new girlfriend, was stunned, her face pale as wax. She hadn't expected to be just a pawn in his game. The video ended with the image of the divorce papers Liam had thrown at me, with the pathetic severance pay and the demand, "You'll leave with nothing." The last text appeared on the screen like a verdict. Justice may take time, but it always comes. The lights in the hall came on, and chaos broke out. Screams, Sophia's hysterical crying, the insults of the guests who felt betrayed. The journalists we had notified rushed onto the stage, aimed their cameras at Liam and Sophia, and bombarded them with questions. "Mr. Carter, how do you explain this evidence?" "Miss Carter, did you know about your brother's fraudulent activities?" The magnificent birthday party had turned into a public trial, a tragicomedy where the 2 main characters, Liam and Sophia, were judged by everyone. Amidst the confusion, I calmly put down the microphone and stepped off the stage. My mother-in-law, Mrs. Helen, was waiting for me there. She took my hand. Her gaze was a mixture of compassion and pride. "Let's go, my child. The play is over." I nodded and calmly left the hall with my mother-in-law, leaving the ashes of lies and greed behind me. I didn't have to look back. I knew that from this night on, the lives of Liam and Sophia would never be the same again. The storm I had unleashed at the Drake Hotel had a far greater impact than I had imagined. That very night, the video of the birthday gift and the recordings of the chaos at the party spread on social media like wildfire. In a single night, Liam Carter went from being a successful sales manager to a fraudster and a villain condemned by society. Sophia Carter was exposed, going from a proud princess and brilliant student to an ungrateful person living off her sister-in-law's sacrifices. Her scandal became the hottest topic in all forums and conversations. The stock of the company Liam worked for plummeted. Partners canceled contracts, and friends and colleagues turned their backs on him. They lost everything in one night: career, reputation, and the relationships they were so proud of. The next morning, the police initiated an official investigation. With the evidence presented at the party and my report, Liam and Megan were brought in for questioning. A travel ban was immediately imposed, thwarting any escape plan. In the meantime, my mother-in-law and I found a strange peace. After the successful premiere, we returned neither to Karen's apartment nor to my mother's house. My mother-in-law organized a short trip to a resort at Lake Geneva. She said we needed to get out of the eye of the storm and let the law and public opinion do their work. And most importantly, I needed to rest and heal the deep wounds in my soul. For the first time in many years, I felt a true sense of freedom. I walked along the shore, listened to the sound of the water, and breathed the fresh mountain air. I didn't have to worry anymore, didn't have to plan, didn't have to act. I could be myself. My mother-in-law, Mrs. Helen, also seemed to have a great burden lifted from her shoulders. She no longer had that strict and grumpy expression. She smiled and talked more. She told me about her youth, about the difficulties and failures she had overcome. It became clear to me that behind the hard and cruel facade she had built was a woman who had also been hurt and had to fight alone. "I'm sorry, Jessica," she said suddenly one evening as we sat on the balcony looking at the lake. "I was wrong to treat you like that. I was selfish. I only thought of my children and forgot that you were also my daughter." I took her wrinkled but still warm hand. "I don't blame you, Mom. I understand. It's all over." "No, it's not over." She shook her head. Her gaze became serious. "I must compensate you. And not just with money, but with something more." I didn't understand what she meant until we returned to Chicago, and she led me to a luxurious office building on Astor Street. She escorted me to the top floor and opened the door to an office with a brass plate that read, "Office of the President, Westwood Real Estate Group." I froze. The Westwood Group was one of the largest real estate conglomerates in the country, a formidable competitor to Liam's former firm. This is your company?" I stammered. "More precisely, it is the company my grandfather left me, and which I have managed in secret all these years without anyone knowing," said Mrs. Helen with a calm but proud voice. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My mother-in-law, whom I thought was a simple housewife, was the president of a great empire. "Why? Why did you hide it?" "Because I wanted to test people." "My child," she said with a gaze that wandered into the distance. "I wanted to see how my own children would treat me if I had nothing. And I received my answer. They were only interested in my money, my property. Only you, Jessica, only you treated me with a sincere heart, even when you thought I was just a grumpy old woman with nothing to offer." She turned to me, her gaze full of trust. "Jessica, I am old. I have no strength left to continue this. I want you to take my place. You have the talent, the courage, and most importantly, a noble heart. You will do it better than I." Her proposal was like a thunderclap. Me, president of the Westwood Group? That was unimaginable. "But I have no experience in the real estate sector," I stammered. "Business is business. The sector doesn't matter, child." She smiled tenderly. "If you could build a chain of shops from scratch, there is no reason why you cannot lead this group. Besides, you won't be alone. You will have me and a team of the most loyal people by your side." I looked into my mother-in-law's firm eyes. I knew it wasn't just an offer, but a handover of absolute trust. I was no longer an abandoned wife, no pitiable victim. I had the chance to start over and build an even brighter career than before. I took a deep breath. "Yes, I will not disappoint you," I said with a firm voice. On that day, as I left the Westwood Group building, I knew that my life had turned a completely new page, full of challenges, but also full of promise. I would live not only for myself, but to live up to my mother-in-law's trust and build a better future. And I knew that somewhere, when Liam and Sophia learned this news, they would regret it to their very core. But it was already too late. They themselves had destroyed everything they had. The news that Jessica Miller, the abandoned wife in the Liam Carter scandal, became the new president of the Westwood Group overnight caused an even greater shock than the scandal at the hotel. The Chicago business world held its breath. No one could believe that the woman they thought was a useless parasite had such an impressive background. Newspapers and news portals dedicated whole pages to her again, but this time it was not criticism or pity, but admiration and amazement. They called me the mysterious entrepreneur, the phoenix risen from the ashes. My face appeared on the front pages of renowned business magazines. My story became a source of inspiration for millions of women. I paid no attention to the flattery. I knew the path ahead was full of thorns. Taking over the leadership of a group like Westwood was no easy task. I had to learn, to work 100 times, 1,000 times harder. I threw myself into work like a moth to a flame. During the day, there were meetings, project reviews, problem solving. At night, I studied financial reports and real estate market documents. My mother-in-law, Mrs. Helen, became my best advisor. She didn't intervene directly in the management, but her advice and valuable experience helped me enormously. She taught me to read people, to negotiate, to make bold but not reckless decisions. Little by little, I proved my worth. Under my leadership, the Westwood Group not only remained unaffected by the change in leadership, but experienced spectacular growth. I boldly and effectively implemented new business strategies. New projects were successfully launched and generated enormous profits. The shareholders, who were initially skeptical, now trusted and supported me completely. In the meantime, the trial against Liam and his accomplices came to an end. Faced with irrefutable evidence and public outrage, the court imposed a very harsh sentence. Liam Carter was sentenced to 15 years in prison for fraud and embezzlement. Megan, the head of accounting, received 7 years for aiding and abetting. Sophia, although not directly involved in the embezzlement, was sentenced to 3 years of probation for her role as an instigator and beneficiary and had to pay back all the money she had spent. I did not attend the trial. I didn't want to see their defeated faces again. For me, all accounts had been settled that night at the hotel. I was told that Liam screamed and cursed at the sentencing, blaming me and my mother-in-law for everything. Sophia collapsed in the courtroom. Their family was completely finished. Their parents, seeing both their children involved in legal problems, had to sell their house in their hometown to pay for lawyers. But it was in vain. They paid a very high price for their greed and wickedness. One afternoon, just as I was about to leave the office, I received a call from an unknown number. It was my mother. Her voice sounded hesitant. "Jessica, Liam's parents, they came to my house." I froze. What did they come for? "They came to ask you for forgiveness," said my mother. "They are kneeling and crying at the door, saying they were wrong and begging you to forgive them and save Liam. The neighbors have already gathered to watch." What should we do? I was silent for a moment. A mixture of emotions overcame me. Forgive them after everything they had done to me? "Mom," I said with a calm voice, "please tell them that I do not decide Liam's fate, but the law does, and that I do not have the power to forgive his mistakes. The only person they should ask for forgiveness from is their own conscience. Tell them to please go. I do not wish to see them." I hung up and leaned back in my chair. I am not a saint. I couldn't simply forgive those who had mercilessly trampled on my life. But I didn't hate them anymore either. They had paid their price. That was enough. Their life had nothing to do with mine from now on. I looked out the window. Twilight was descending over the city. Another day was coming to an end. I smiled. My life was only just really beginning. A life without lies, without hate, only with work, with my mother-in-law, and a promising future ahead of me. Life after the trial was busy but peaceful. I dedicated all my energy to leading the Westwood Group. Under my leadership and with the advice of my mother-in-law, the company solidified its position as one of the pillars of the real estate sector. I didn't forget my fashion boutique chain either. I restructured it, opened more branches, and made my brand a name that young people loved. I was no longer a woman living in the shadow of her husband. I had become an independent, autonomous, and successful entrepreneur. I also dedicated more time to myself and my mother-in-law. We traveled together, went to spas, enjoyed good food. I realized that happiness is sometimes as simple as being with the people you love and doing the things you like. My relationship with Mrs. Helen became closer and closer. We were no longer mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, but truly mother and daughter. She was not only my mentor at work, but my confidant with whom I shared all my joys and sorrows. Sometimes she mentioned Liam and Sophia with a sigh. I knew she still felt the pain of a mother in her heart, but she never asked me to forgive or help them. She respected my decisions, my new life. One morning, while I was checking reports in my office, my secretary came in somewhat hesitantly. "Madam President, a person named Sophia Carter is asking to see you." It had been a long time since I had heard that name. Since the scandal, Sophia had vanished without a trace. She had quit her job and broken off all contact. Why was she looking for me now? "Let her in," I said calmly. I wanted to see what else she could want from me. Sophia entered. She looked completely changed. She was no longer the modern and confident executive. She was much thinner, her face haggard, her eyes sunken, and with an expression of fatigue and fear. She wore an old business suit that had lost its shine. When she saw me, she lowered her head, not daring to look at me. "Jessica," she murmured. "Sit down." I pointed to a chair. "What do you want?" Sophia hesitated for a moment and suddenly knelt before me, bursting into tears. "Jessica, I'm sorry. I know I have no right to ask you for forgiveness, but I regret it so much. I beg you, please save me." I was stunned by her act. "Stand up. If you have something to say it calmly." I didn't want to seem magnanimous, but I also didn't want to witness this humiliating scene. After a while, Sophia calmed down and told me her story. It turned out that after Liam's scandal, his mistress, the model, had quickly fled with a large sum of money that Liam had embezzled. She had fled the country and left Sophia alone to face the consequences. Sophia had been implicated as a friend and accomplice. Although her sentence was lighter than Liam's and Megan's, her reputation in the financial world was ruined. No company wanted to hire her. She lived as an outcast, despised by everyone. "I lost everything, Jessica," she said, sobbing. "Career, friends, honor, nothing is left. For months I've been doing menial jobs to survive. I can't go on. Give me a chance to rebuild my life. I promise to do everything to make up for my mistake." She looked at me, her eyes full of pleading. "I know I don't deserve it, but I beg you." I looked at her silently. An indescribable feeling overcame me. Should I forgive the woman who, along with others, had stabbed me in the back? But then I saw a reflection of myself in her, the image of a woman who had also lost everything, who had been at the bottom of despair. If it hadn't been for my mother-in-law, perhaps I wouldn't have been able to get back up either. "Stand up," I said, my voice softening. "I don't want to dwell on the past. We all make mistakes. The important thing is knowing how to regret them." Sophia looked up. Her eyes widened with hope. "Does that mean you?" I didn't say I forgive you, I interrupted her. "Betrayal can't be erased so easily, but I can give you a chance." I took out a business card and wrote an address on it. "This is the address of a social center that the Westwood Group sponsors. They need an accountant. It's not a glamorous job and the salary isn't high, but it's enough for you to start over. Go there and use your talent to help people in need. Consider it a form of reparation for your mistakes." Sophia took the card, her hands trembling. She couldn't say anything, only bowed her head. Tears of remorse ran down her cheeks. As she left, I followed her stooped figure with my gaze and felt a sense of lightness. I realized that the sweetest revenge is not making your enemies suffer, but having the generosity to leave them a way out so they can face their own conscience. And even more important is being able to transform the pain of the past into something meaningful to help others. On that day, I learned a true lesson about forgiveness. Life after forgiving Sophia seemed to enter a new chapter, lighter and more serene. The burden of the past had completely evaporated. I focused on my work and on taking care of my mother-in-law. Under my leadership, the Westwood Group solidified its position in the market. We not only built luxury real estate projects, but also led social initiatives. The Sunflower Foundation, which I founded myself, helped hundreds of female entrepreneurs and created a strong wave of female empowerment and independence. I became a role model, an inspiration for many, but deep in my heart, I felt that something was missing. I had a career, money, fame, but no real home. The huge mansion, although I had my mother-in-law with me, sometimes felt empty. I longed for a child, a little being I could love and take care of, to make my life complete. But after everything that had happened, I no longer believed in love. I didn't want to put my life in a man's hands again. I thought about adoption, but my mother-in-law had another idea. One evening, while we were watching a romance movie, she suddenly asked me, "Jessica, have you thought about marrying again?" I was surprised by her question. "Mom, what are you saying?" "No, I haven't thought about that." "Why?" She looked at me tenderly. "You are young, pretty, intelligent. You deserve to be happy, to have a man by your side who loves and protects you. Not all men are like Liam. But I'm afraid, Mom, I confessed. Afraid of being cheated on again, of being hurt." She took my hand. I understand that. But you can't close your heart forever because of one bad experience. Give yourself a chance and give it to someone else. There is someone I want you to meet. He is a very good man. I never thought my mother-in-law would become my matchmaker. The man she introduced to me was Michael, the son of one of her deceased best friends. He was a pediatrician, 5 years older than me, divorced, and raising his little daughter alone. I had seen him a few times at family gatherings. My impression was of a quiet man who spoke little, with a friendly smile and a very warm gaze. At my mother-in-law's insistence, Michael and I started seeing each other. Initially, it was just coffees and casual conversations, but gradually I felt attracted by his sincerity, his understanding, and his good heart. He didn't use beautiful words and didn't give me expensive gifts. He was simply there for me, listening to me and comforting me when I was tired. He also told me about his past marriage, about the pain and difficulties of raising a daughter alone. By his side, I felt at peace and could be myself. I didn't have to pretend to be strong or hide my wounds. He loved the real Jessica, with my strengths and my weaknesses. Lily, his daughter, was a lovable and affectionate girl. She quickly grew to love me. Every weekend, the three of us went to the park, to the cinema, or to get ice cream. Seeing the innocent smile of the child filled my heart with a warmth I longed for, the desire to be a mother. One afternoon, while we were in the park, Lily ran up to me, hugged me, and said, "Auntie Jessica, can I call you Mom?" Her words took my breath away. Tears came to my eyes. I held her tightly and nodded happily. Of course, my child. Michael, who stood next to us, looked at us with shining eyes full of emotion. He came closer, knelt down, and took out a small velvet box. Inside was a simple but exquisite diamond ring. "Jessica, will you marry me?" he said with a sincere and warm voice. "I don't promise you the material wealth you already have, but I promise you something you have always looked for, a family, a true home, a place with me, Lily, and unconditional love." I didn't hesitate anymore. I nodded and offered him my hand so he could put the ring on it. A tear of happiness rolled down my cheek. After so many storms, I had finally found my safe haven. Our wedding was simple but cozy on the coast of Maine, with only family and closest friends. My mother and my mother-in-law, the two grandmothers, held hands and smiled radiantly. Lily, in a beautiful princess dress, was the flower girl for her own parents. In the moment of the ring exchange under the spectacular sunset, I knew I had found true happiness. A happiness that did not come from money or fame, but from sincerity, understanding, and true love. Life after the wedding with Michael was a sweet and quiet dream. We moved into the mansion on the Gold Coast. The house, which was once cold, now overflowed with Lily's laughter and the warmth of a real family. Michael was a wonderful husband and father. He loved me deeply and took care of Lily devotedly. He helped her with homework, played with her, and read stories to her before bed. His love gradually healed the girl's wounds and helped her become more cheerful and confident. I also found happiness in my role as a mother. I learned to cook Lily's favorite dishes. I decorated her room like a princess castle. I spent time talking with her and sharing secrets. The unconditional love I gave her was also the medicine for my own scars. My mother-in-law, Mrs. Helen, was thrilled with my new family. She treated Michael like a son and Lily like her granddaughter. Every weekend we all met, cooked together, and watched movies. This warm and happy atmosphere was what I had longed for so long. My work at the Westwood Group continued to be demanding, but I learned to balance my professional and family life. I was no longer obsessed with work. I knew that the greatest success of a woman is not how much money she earns, but building a happy family. One afternoon, I received a call from the prison at my office. It was Liam. I hadn't heard from him in a long time. I hesitated, but then picked up. "Jessica, it's me." His voice sounded hoarse and tired. "Thanks," I answered calmly. "Are you calling about something specific?" "No, nothing special. I just wanted to ask for your forgiveness one more time. I know it's too late, but I really regret it. In here, I've had a lot of time to think. I was wrong in an unforgivable way. I destroyed my own happiness. I lost the best woman in the world. I listened silently. My heart remained calm. I also feel guilty because of my mother, he continued with a cracked voice. I am a bad son. I wasn't by her side when she needed me most. If you can, please take care of her for me and also of my parents. They are already old and have suffered a lot. I know I have no right to ask you this, but you don't need to say more, I interrupted him. I will take care of your parents. You focus on getting better. That is the best way to make up for your mistakes. I hung up. I felt no anger anymore, only pity. He had paid a very high price for his mistakes. A few days later, I visited the old and simple neighborhood where his parents lived. After the scandal, they had to sell everything and return to their old house. I stood before the peeling wooden door with a strange feeling. I knocked. Liam's mother opened. When she saw me, she froze, her eyes full of surprise and shame. She had aged a lot. She no longer had that proud and bitter aura. Jessica, what? What are you doing here? She stammered. I came to visit you. I smiled, a smile without resentment. I entered the small house, which was untidy and smelled of dampness. His father lay on a folding bed. After a stroke, he had remained paralyzed on one side. When he saw me, he tried to sit up with tear-filled eyes. I placed a fruit basket and an envelope on the table. I brought you a little something. Here is some money so you can make ends meet. I also contacted a good rehab center. They will come to your home to help him with his exercises. Liam's mother burst into tears. Tears of late remorse. Jessica, we did you so much wrong. We don't deserve this. The past is the past, I said sincerely. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for Liam. After all, he was my husband, and I'm also doing it for myself. I don't want to live with hate. I left there with a light heart. I realized that forgiving not only frees the other person, but also frees yourself. Only when you let go of the past can you find peace and happiness. A year after our wedding, our small family welcomed a new member. A beautiful boy, the spitting image of Michael. The arrival of little Leo brought us complete happiness. The mansion was always filled with the laughter of the two children. Lily became a wonderful big sister who adored and spoiled her brother. Seeing them play together filled my heart with warmth and gratitude. I thanked life for the opportunity to be a mother, to experience this sacred and unconditional love. I continued my work at the Westwood Group, but learned to organize my time more efficiently. I delegated more to my employees. I wanted to spend more time with my family, with Michael and the children, because I understood that no career can replace the happiness of home. Michael remained an exemplary husband and father, my rock in every storm, at work and in life. My mother-in-law, Mrs. Helen, retired completely and dedicated her time to looking after her two grandchildren. Her joy was seeing them grow up healthy and happy. The Sunflower Foundation grew into an organization of great influence, a home for thousands of female entrepreneurs all over the country. I no longer led it directly, but had passed the torch to the new generation and acted only as a mentor and source of inspiration. Sometimes I received news from Liam's family. His parents lived a modest and quiet life in their hometown. Liam got out of prison on probation after a few years of good conduct. He became a quiet and reserved man. He stayed in his town, found a normal job, and started over. He never contacted me again. Sophia, for her part, also changed. She led a discreet life, and as I learned, she had married and started a family. Maybe she too finally found her way. One weekend afternoon, the whole family was in the garden. Michael and Lily were playing on the lawn. My mother-in-law and I sat on the porch swing with little Leo in my arms and watched the sunset. Are you happy, Jessica? My mother-in-law asked me suddenly. I smiled and leaned my head on her shoulder. I am very happy, Mom. I have never felt so happy and at peace. Me too, she said with a gaze that lingered on the horizon. My life had many storms. I thought I would never find happiness. But then you came and brought light and hope. Thank you, my daughter. I hugged her, overwhelmed by emotions. My journey hadn't been easy. I had fallen, suffered, been desperate, but I hadn't given up. I had risen again stronger and more resilient and had finally found happiness. True happiness. I looked at Michael and the laughing children, my mother-in-law smiling by my side, and I realized that life is like a painting with its light and dark sides. The important thing is knowing how to walk through the darkness to find and paint your own bright colors. And I had found the color palette of my life. Years later, when I was the age my mother-in-law was back then and my hair had turned silver, I often sat on the veranda and told my grandchildren the story of my life. The story of a woman who went from the abyss of despair to the summit of happiness. The children listened to me with wide open eyes. They didn't understand all the pain and intrigue. They only knew that their grandmother was a very strong woman. "Grandma, when I grow up, I want to be like you," said my eldest granddaughter. I smiled and stroked her head. "You don't need to be like Grandma. Just be yourself. Lead an honest and kind life and never allow anyone to trample on your dignity. That is more than enough." I received an anonymous letter. Inside was a handwritten note with shaky writing. "Dear Mrs. Jessica, I am Liam's father. I know I have no right to write to you, but before I close my eyes, I want to ask for your forgiveness. Forgiveness for everything. We were blind with greed. The price we paid was very high, but it was just. I only hope that wherever you are very happy. You deserve it." I folded the letter. In peace. All the resentment had flown away with time. My life was now a sequence of quiet days with my family. Michael and I are already adult and successful children. Lily, a brilliant architect. Leo, a talented entrepreneur stepping into my footsteps, and the grandchildren filling our house with joy. My mother-in-law, Mrs. Helen, left us a few years ago in peace and surrounded by love. Before she went, she took my hand and said, "Jessica, I do not regret choosing you. You did it better than I ever dreamed." The Sunflower Foundation was now an organization with global impact. I was only a consultant, a mentor for the new generations. Sometimes I looked back on that rainy afternoon, on the woman who was cast out with a torn bag. It was no longer a painful memory, but a reminder of the value of strength, love, and forgiveness. From the balcony, I looked at the blooming garden. The wind carried a sweet scent. My life had been a long journey with ups and downs, with laughter and tears, but I regretted nothing. Everything that happened had made me who I am today. A Jessica who found happiness not on the outside, but in the peace of her own soul. And I knew that my story didn't end here. It would continue through my children, my grandchildren, and all the women of the Sunflower Foundation. It would become an eternal song about resilience, faith, and the beauty of life. A psalm called The Rebirth of the Phoenix. We've listened to this strong woman's story, together. I'm grateful to her for sharing her courage with us. So, what do you think? If you were in her place, could you make these difficult decisions? Share your thoughts with me in the comments. I read each one and try to respond. Thank you for being here with me. See you in the next story.
Thank you for listening to this story until the end. Hopefully every moment in the story has touched your heart, brought you some reflection, some emotion, and hope. Thank you for taking the time to experience it with us, and hope that each next story will always accompany you on your life journey.